What is the price of progress? In the misty valleys of the Sierra Nevada, where towering sequoias stretch toward the heavens and crystal streams dance over granite boulders, the young Scotsman wrestled with the darkness within. Daniel had fled his family's farm in Wisconsin, seeking a new life in the vast and mysterious American West. Yet, as he toiled in the California hills, his mind seethed with doubt. Was he merely a wanderer, lost in the vast expanse of the wilderness, or was he truly a part of it? Daniel's days blurred together as he battled the unforgiving land, coaxing seeds into life from the hard, dry earth. His calloused hands moved in practiced rhythm, the ache in his back a reminder of the physical toll of his toil. The scent of damp earth and green shoots filled the air, a potent elixir that soothed his soul, even as his worries mounted. He longed to belong, to leave behind the shadows of his past and forge a new identity in the crucible of the forest. As the seasons passed, Daniel's obsession with the natural world intensified. He devoured books on botany, zoology, and geology, his thirst for knowledge insatiable. The more he learned, the more he felt an almost spiritual connection to the land. His want was simple: to protect this fragile ecosystem, to preserve its beauty for generations to come. But what he truly needed, what he was beginning to grasp, was the understanding that his existence was inextricably linked to the land's health. One fateful morning, as Daniel walked a familiar trail through the redwoods, the sound of a chainsaw pierced the stillness. His heart sank as he beheld a crew of loggers at work, their axes biting into the ancient trees like a swarm of insects devouring a living being. The forest, which had grown to feel like a sanctuary, was under attack. Daniel approached the logging camp, his senses reeling from the cacophony of sounds, the crash of axes, the shouts of the loggers, and the anguished cries of the trees. He felt the weight of his inaction, his inexperience, and his fear. What could one man do against the might of industrial progress? The question hung in the air like a challenge, until Daniel spotted a young logger, his hands stained with sap and sweat, gazing up at the forest with a look of sorrow. As Daniel watched, a glimmer of recognition flickered to life within the logger's eyes. "You're one of them, aren't you?" the young man asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "You care about this place?" Daniel nodded, the words feeling like a confession. The logger's face hardened, and he spat a wad of phlegm onto the forest floor. "You're too late. The axe is already fallen. Now, the only choice is how deep it'll cut." The logger's words hung in the air like a death sentence, and Daniel knew that his life would never be the same. The misty veil of uncertainty lifted, revealing a path forward, fraught with danger, but also possibility. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Daniel's thoughts swirled with the weight of what he had seen. His eyelids grew heavy, and the rustle of leaves in the evening breeze lured him into a restless sleep, his dreams infused with the scent of pine and the haunting melody of the chainsaw. In the days that followed, Daniel's desire to save the redwoods from destruction intensified. He walked the forest floor, his footsteps quiet on the leaf-covered earth, as he sought out allies to join his fight. The young logger, whose name was John, became his first convert, and together they began to spread the word about the devastating effects of unchecked progress. But as they spoke, Daniel realized that the loggers were merely pawns in a larger game. Railroads, which had once promised a brighter future, now threatened to destroy the very heart of the forest. The iron behemoths would bring progress, the loggers claimed, but Daniel saw only devastation, the clear-cutting of ancient trees, the displacement of wildlife, and the disfigurement of the landscape. His arguments fell on deaf ears, however, as the lure of economic gain proved irresistible to the timber barons and the politicians who served them. As Daniel and John's protests gained momentum, they faced increasingly vicious opposition. Threats, intimidation, and even violence became commonplace. The sleep-deprived nights took their toll, and Daniel's eyelids grew heavy with the weight of his worries. He would often find himself standing in the forest, the darkness closing in around him, his thoughts a jumble of fear and uncertainty. He would breathe deeply, feeling the earth beneath his feet, and the stars twinkling above, drawing strength from the land itself. The midpoint came in the form of a fateful meeting with a prominent businessman, Joseph Stewart, who claimed to be a friend of the forest. Stewart promised to help Daniel and John find a solution, one that would balance the needs of progress with the preservation of the natural world. But as Daniel listened to Stewart's words, he sensed a hidden agenda, a hidden truth that threatened to upend everything he thought he knew. The truth, it turned out, was that Stewart was secretly working with the timber barons, using his influence to pave the way for the railroad's destruction of the forest. Daniel's heart sank, his world turned upside down by the revelation. He felt as though he'd been blindsided by a hurricane, unable to find his footing in the turbulent waters. Sleep that night was elusive, his dreams haunted by the specter of Stewart's treachery. As he tossed and turned, the sound of the chainsaw echoed in his mind, the image of the young logger's sorrowful face seared into his memory. Daniel's resolve hardened, but his doubts lingered, like a shadow in the corner of his mind. The days that followed were a blur of activism and confrontation, as Daniel and his allies fought against the seemingly insurmountable odds. The stakes were high, and the outcome uncertain. Would they be able to save the redwoods, or would the axe of progress ultimately prevail? As the darkness gathered, Daniel steeled himself for the challenges ahead, his heart heavy with the weight of the unknown. His eyes, sunken from sleepless nights, seemed to hold a deep sadness, a reflection of the darkest hour that lay ahead. The air was heavy with tension as Daniel stepped into the clearing, flanked by his loyal companions. Before them lay the heart of the redwood forest, a majestic giant that seemed to pierce the sky like a shard of stone. The chainsaws had been silenced, but the weight of what was to come hung in the air like a challenge, a gauntlet thrown down by those who sought to destroy the very fabric of nature. As they approached, a figure emerged from the shadows, a logger, his face twisted by the scars of a lifetime spent battling the elements. His eyes, like two glinting stones, locked onto Daniel's, and for a moment, the two men simply regarded each other, the fate of the forest hanging precariously in the balance. The sound of the wind rustling through the leaves was the only sound that broke the silence, a gentle reminder that even in the midst of conflict, there was still a world outside that pulsed with life. The scent of damp earth and decaying leaves filled the air, a primordial aroma that spoke to the very essence of life itself. "You're a foolish man, Muir," the logger spat, his voice like a rusty gate. "You think you can save these trees? You think you can stop progress?" Daniel's eyes flashed with determination, his jaws set in a firm line. "I will not stand idly by while you destroy this sacred land," he said, his voice like a gentle breeze on a summer's day. The logger sneered, but Daniel could see the faintest glimmer of doubt in his eyes. It was a small spark, but it was enough to fan the flames of hope that had been burning within Daniel for so long. As the standoff continued, the sun began to set, casting a golden glow over the clearing. The trees seemed to loom larger, their branches stretching out like giant arms, as if trying to intervene on Daniel's behalf. The air grew cooler, and the scent of the forest deepened, until it was almost palpable. And then, in a flash of insight, the logger's expression changed. He looked at Daniel with newfound respect, and for a moment, the two men simply regarded each other, the conflict forgotten. The sound of the wind died away, and an oppressive silence fell over the clearing. Daniel's companions stood frozen, their eyes fixed on the logger, as if waiting for some signal, some indication of what was to come. And then, in a voice that was barely audible, the logger spoke the words that would change everything. "I've seen the damage we've done. I've seen the pain we've caused. I will not continue down this path." The weight of the logger's words was like a boulder falling from a great height, crashing to the earth with a resounding thud. Daniel's companions erupted into cheers, and the forest itself seemed to awaken from its slumber, the trees swaying gently in the breeze. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the world in a deep, rich shade of indigo, Daniel felt a sense of peace wash over him. He knew that the fight was far from over, but in that moment, he knew that he had won something far greater than a battle. He had won a new perspective. And so, John Muir found what he had been searching for, not in the world outside, but within himself. Let that thought carry you now, as the night grows quiet. You have heard his story. Now rest in it. Subscribe to HISTOREST. Next week, we will meet another soul who changed the world, one quiet decision at a time. Good night. As the darkness deepens, imagine yourself standing in the midst of that clearing, surrounded by the ancient trees that have witnessed the passage of time. Feel the rustle of the leaves beneath your feet, and the soft breeze that carries the whispers of the forest. And as you drift off to sleep, repeat to yourself the words of the logger, "I will not continue down this path." Let those words become a mantra, a reminder of the power of choice and the importance of standing up for what is right. Sleep tight, and may the gentle rustle of the leaves guide you into the night.